could sit there,
Thank you.
and if Carla...
If you're talking, sit over here. If you're not, wherever you like.
I'm like all my vices. My cigarettes, my coffee, my water.
Recording camera, live streaming camera.
Okay.
They're different.
Yes, the one on your right is our live streaming camera. We stream live from Granite Rock. Which reminds me,
I might have washed my hair if I had known that.
I do have a couple of things when we're done to ask you about.
Okay.
Liberty Fest
Forum, yes.
Forum. We're wondering whether or not we might be able to do a remote and set up there. Might that be possible for Granite Rock?
I think so. Yes. Yeah, we'll figure something out.
Okay.
Coming back in a couple seconds.
Mute it.
I did already.
Okay, I'm just checking because I thought I missed it.
Money for nothing. What did I say? I said, look at those yo-yos, that's the way you do it. Listen to the GrokTALK at CNHT. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah, glad to have you here.
Me too.
I can't reach those buttons over there, so that's a huge problem for me when I'm by myself. You are listening to GrokTALK live streaming at GraniteRock.com, brought to you by GraniteRock.com from the CNHT studios at 8 North Main Street in beautiful Concord, New Hampshire.
New Hampshire's leading conservative libertarian blog site.
Yes, and we all have guns, so just get used to it.
Yes.
That's the way it works.
New Hampshire's safest podcast, as we like to say.
We'd like to thank Kevin Bloom and Mark Warden for being here. We'd like to also thank Mike Rogers for calling us from the car.
The limo.
And from the limo on
From
the way
the
back from
airport.
his left coast adventure. And we'll have him here back next week. Betsy McCoy is supposed to be with us, and we're lining up a couple more guests for next week. But this week, we have Carla Garrick and we have Ian Underwood back. And I have to say that when we have great segments every week, and that particular week we had a great segment with Ian. And happy to have you back. How you guys doing?
Great.
Doing great.
Good to have you back. So, Free State Project. Yay.
Yes, you. The Democrats have tried to make you. It's all, in a perverse sort of way. It's sort of nice that the Democrats have learned about what the Free State Project is, because for Tea Partiers like me, they're no longer calling us the Tea Partiers. Now we're all Free Staters.
We're all Free Staters now.
If I ever voted Republican once in my life, I am now a Free Stater for some strange reason,
Yeah.
even though recently Republicans are being as un-Free State-like as you could imagine. So.
Yes, yeah. Wind me back up about this
No,
Medicaid
let's stop
expansion.
talking. We're here to talk to them, what they have to say. Welcome, Carlos, the president of the Free State Project, and we're happy to have you here. You have some events coming up, you have some things going on. Tell us about
Yes,
it.
we do. We have Liberty Forum coming in a couple of weeks. I can't believe it's almost here, and it is going to be incredible. The theme for this year is Watching the Watchers, so we're basically doing a big,
Yes.
sort of trying to highlight the surveillance state, the national surveillance state, all the leaks that have come out with the NSA, and one of our keynote speakers is the NSA whistleblower Thomas Drake. He basically is Snowden before Snowden. So back in the thousands, he whistleblew on malfeasance that the NSA was doing and took a different approach that Snowden did. Of course, Snowden had to leave the country. He felt like he wasn't safe here, and that really does speak to where we are. I think
Honestly,
in terms
when you have to
of
run to Russia to feel safe, oh my lord.
The irony.
yeah, it's ironic and it's tragic. I heard someone from a statesman in Washington say this week that Glenn Greenwald, who's the journalist who's been leaking a lot of, using a lot of the leaks for his stories, are now being called accomplices. So, we're basically criminalizing free speech. And so with Liberty Forum, really what we wanted to do is to bring these topics to light, really discuss them, talk about them. But I think what makes the Free State Project and Free Staters unique is that we're doers. We don't just sit around and talk. I love sitting around and talking, don't get me wrong. But we like to do as well, so we're attracting people and activists to the state and saying, look, not only do we have these problems, but what do we do about them? What are the solutions? And of course, we believe that the Free State Project is a solution to concentrate people in one state and to really try and change things in a way where we can prove to people that, the principles of liberty and freedom actually work.
Well, the entire idea of the states is to, little laboratories, and it'd be nice to have one where we're trying to optimize the idea of balancing liberty and government in a way that's productive for everybody, and that everybody can get along and then get what needs done, and then leave everybody else the hell alone. And, we're glad to have you here.
Oh, absolutely, and I can't wait for everybody to start coming in. I moved to New Hampshire for a job, and then I became enamored of the live free or die philosophy. And as my family grew up and the kids got older and I could spend more time doing other things, I learned much more about my government and what my government had started from. And I look at us, and you guys are included in this by the Democrats, these right-wing extremists. It's like, no, all we're trying to do is go back to our roots. It's not going right or left. It's going back down to the constitutional values of limited government, and that there's a separation between the branches, and that government wasn't supposed to be overriding civil society. When we read de Tocqueville and we read the founders, government was supposed to be this little thing. Civil society was a big thing, and individuals even bigger. And all we're asking for, let's go back, because that made us the most powerful, richest nation in the world with the greatest amount of freedom. And yet the Democrats and the progressives say, you guys are extremists. Why aren't you accepting your government overlords? Sorry, it's been a ranting day for me today.
Yeah, the Medicaid thing has really got him going.
Well, actually,
all going.
Speaking of progressives, another speaker we have at Liberty Forum is Naomi Wolf, and
wow,
yeah. So and the thinking behind that, she wrote 2 books that are very similar. They came out around about the time that Ron Paul wrote his books when he was running 2008, 2012. That sort of mirror his points from a progressive standpoint. And I had heard several interviews with her with Lou Rockwell. If your listeners aren't familiar with LouRockwell.com, that's a site I highly recommend. I think philosophically it's one of those ones where you go and you just learn something every day. And I'd heard a couple of podcasts with her, and I was like, we've got to bring her out. She's not entirely on board, but I'm very interested in sort of building bridges and saying, if people are at least thinking about these things. I mean, she wrote an entire book about fascism, which, if you're progressive, that's like, okay, you're seeing the problem, so now let's talk about solutions. Now, of course, she thinks the solution is more state, and we think the solution is less state. But that at least is a dialogue we can have. I like to say progressives are oftentimes libertarians who don't understand economics.
Well, I'm not sure that I would agree with you, because as a Tea Partier type guy, because Greenwich Rock was one of the co-founding members of the New Hampshire Tea Party Coalition. We've since left it, but we were there at the start and helped push it along. I went and I visited the Occupy Wall Street folks, at least here in New Hampshire. And certainly there was one area that we agreed upon, which mirrors exactly what you just brought up. Crony capitalism. We see too much of that. Medicaid expansion being one of those.
Has that corporatist air, doesn't it?
Yeah, and we see the establishment Republicans doing the same thing with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and all of that. Tea Party's about free markets, not pro-business. Free markets, and there's a huge gap between the two of them. And we could agree with the Occupy Wall Streeters saying crony capitalism is the problem. And we disagree. They wanted more government regulation. Tea Party is saying make less government, because then there's less nooks and crannies for crony capitalism. Yeah, that works. Capitalism to insert itself and take root.
Just take a breath and just say that as one phrase so I can edit it out and use it. Crony capitalism.
Crony capitalism. Yeah, that's the way it goes.
Okay.
Yeah, now you can use it in further sound.
I'm going to hold it over your head. No, I'm not. I actually agree with you. People don't understand that corporatism and crony capitalism is part of the Sorelian fascist structure. It's not separatable. I mean, you need to have that element to really have a good fascist, even socialist system. I mean, and of course you can't have those systems without having absolute control. And we don't want that.
Yeah, I want businesses to succeed. I want them to grow big and grow big on their own merits, because because they provide lots of jobs, and jobs means money, and money oftentimes means freedom from other stuff. But you know, we can sit here for a long time. Anyways, Liberty Forum, Naomi Wolf.
Yes, and so Liberty Forum will be February 20th to the 23rd, so it really is coming up. People can still buy tickets. We'll be shutting that down maybe in the next 4 or 5 days, you know, so, and then we'll also be allowing people to do walk-in tickets on the day. The Thursday of Liberty Forum is in fact free, so if people are curious and they want to learn more, really get a sense of what our community is about, I encourage people to come on Thursday. We have some great speakers. There's a guy called Travis Brown who wrote a fantastic book where he analyzed IRS information to see where money goes. So the book is called How Money Walks, and he and he looked at, you know, where money goes and where it comes from. And I met him at another conference, and it was fascinating. You know, we're so into localism. You know, I'm really interested in what's going on in New Hampshire. You know, the idea of states' rights and all of that. So he's going to be talking about, you know, where money comes into the state from, and it is the usual suspects. It's a lot of the New England states, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and then also where the money goes to. So it goes primarily, I think, to the Carolinas, of course to Florida with the snowbirds, and then up into Maine, which I found kind of interesting. I was like, those must be the real freedom lovers. They're like retreating even further north.
Ooh, Aroostook County, man, it's cold up there.
Location.
Right.
Yeah,
Where?
if all hell breaks loose, they can just dig a
Yeah.
moat
Right,
along the state
exactly.
line,
Yeah.
and
Stay out.
nobody will be able to get in.
Well, you said walk-ins, but you haven't said walk-in where.
Right, so it's at the Crown Plaza in Nashua. So, you know, it's very central. It's easy for people if they're coming up from Mass. It's 20 minutes from the Mensch Airport. So, yes, down at the Crown Plaza. It's Thursday through Sunday. On Thursday as well, with the free talk, with the free day, we're doing Ignite Talks for the first time. And those are basically like TED Talks. It's probably something we're all familiar with.
Watch out for the ducks while you're there.
Right? Hey, the police commissioner resigned, which, you know, I think is fantastic.
I'm still taking credit for some of that. Anyway, it's good to have that. It's nice that you're letting the folks in to see, because, you know, a lot of people will just buy into the narratives and think that you're all a bunch of loons or something, you know, and that we're crazy people, and you get a chance. You look, just come down and check it out. That's all we're asking you to do, you know. It's not Amway. We're not going to sell you a kit, you know. Come and check it out. Listen to people and talk to them. They're regular folks. They have regular everyday problems. They just happen to realize that there's a bigger problem with government, and you may not understand it. You know, I was apolitical before I moved to New Hampshire, and for a long time after. I was working, I was raising my kids, I was doing my thing, and then as 2000 rolled around and things started happening, 9/11, I started paying more attention. I read my founding documents, I started looking at what was going on, where we were supposed to be, crap I never learned in high school 20 years ago, you know, things like that. And I discovered
Only 20?
it was maybe. I graduated in 1981, so yeah, 19, 20 years.
He didn't
And,
pass math.
I didn't have everyday math yet. They didn't invent that then, and then Common Core's just coming. But anyway,
Because 2 plus 2 is 5, right?
I discovered that, you know, I'd always kind of been a Reagan Democrat sort of guy, but I was apolitical way back then, you know. And I discovered, after reading all this stuff, that, you know, I was a conservative, and I approached that, and then I was a very pro-liberty person, and then the government was an issue, and that's how I started blogging. So that's why I'm sitting here in this chair at 10 after 10 on a Saturday morning instead of home watching reality television or something stupid like that.
Well, a lot of the things that you read, actually, maybe you're going to put those in a kit.
I might. You're right. And
because you get it
that
with the price of
kit keeps
admission
getting
here.
bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. But if I had to start a kit, my first suggestion to anybody who's ever been through public school is to just go read the founding documents. Don't read them all. Get the Federalist, but read it in bits and pieces, because it's not like a book. You can't just sit down and go turn page, turn page, turn page, turn page, because you'll be like, oh.
Well,
After a while, you know.
they did make an updated version of the Federalist pages, which I've glimpsed at, and it's actually fairly readable as
But
compared to the.
Updated
What's
in the
important-
sense that they-
Well, it's like reading the Bible in
Government is awesome.
King James
They actually
version
rewrote- they
versus
changed the
NIV. No, if you look at the Bible, King James, the older archaic English, and then you read like the NIV or something like that, it's updated
Okay.
American style of speaking or reading. Same nuances, mostly, because words do change, and so the nuances.
Yeah,
but
I've
it's
seen
easier to
some
read.
Common Core things explaining the Second Amendment
That's-
that'll make your hair stand on it.
Yeah, that's not what I mean. They tried to stay true to the original meaning.
Sure.
So.
I mean, for what it's worth, I would say even before reading the founding documents, I would advise people to read The Law by Frederick Bastiat.
Oh yeah,
good
that's
book,
my
good book.
favorite.
And I think because there's the version I have has, I think Walter Williams did a forward to it, and he said what startled him was it wasn't so much that there were new ideas, it was just somebody coalescing all the ideas that were already sort of there in his head.
Yeah, we're going to take a quick break, but it's important. We're going to come back to this because if you look at what Bastiat talked about, or if you look at what Albert Knopp talked about, or if you look at what, go to Tocqueville. If you go, you can go back even further and look at today. It's the same damn thing. We'll be right back.
You have a pose picture now, you can smile. There's 1, 2, 3. Got the granite rock in the background.
Yes, we.
Bastiat's easier to read though.
It is easy.
Yes.
To read.
That's why
My
I
headphones
suggest
falling
it.
off.
Yeah.
He is. He is.
Look, we have
and
three
I've come
choices.
across some
Oh,
stuff
please.
that you know,
Should I put
Everybody
the
plunders
headphones
everybody.
on?
Nobody
Yes.
plunders everybody. Some people plunder somebody else.
Oh, here you go. All right, there you go. American flag and granite rock in the background.
I'm sorry?
So you got the American flag and granite rock in the background.
Yep. Yep, and if you look from the camera, you can see that black arrow points to Granite Rock.
even though the web address is wrong.
Yes.
Oh no.
Selfie.
So yeah,
It actually worked.
we are just when we get here, we go from the written word to the spoken word,
Come back.
and then our ADD blogger bunch starts to show up. Squirrels.
Hey, we're back. He's over there talking about squirrels. There were no squirrels in Bastiat. by the way.
Broken windows.
Broken squirrels. The broken squirrel theory.
I think
no,
they
wait,
were in the
it's
French
the
version when it
broken
was
nuts
translated,
theory.
they
That's
were
from.
My favorite way to summarize Bastiat's The Law is a Facebook meme where it's a circle of words. So it's words that connect together, and it says government is. People are bad, therefore we need government made up of people are bad, therefore we need government made up of.
Pretty much covers
And
it.
that pretty much, I think, is it in a nutshell.
Well, that and John Locke, who the founders brought a lot of his philosophy into it, recognized man was fallen, needed government in a limited form to not so much to keep them on the straight and narrow, but to at least act halfway civilized. But knowing that if the same kind of people are going to get into government, you've got to separate all those powers. And I've said over and over again, the Constitution is not just pieces of paper about governance. It's about how to keep human nature from taking over. And I get a lot of stares about that. But that is really what they wanted to do, the separation of powers, to compartmentalize the use of power. And we see its abuses today in our current administration at the national level.
I mean, I might posit that by its very nature, I know people love the idea of limited government, and if only we could get back there. I mean, I think within its nature, it's flawed because every time it's limited, it's going to grow at some stage. I think it's really hard with human nature to keep things limited.
It is like any bureaucracy, it always wants to grow, whether it's a private or a public bureaucracy, one way or the
Well, that's why
other.
we try to keep things local, because at least if it's local, you
There's
have more
accountability.
people who can hold people accountable. You know,
And that's what's missing as government gets larger and larger. I can literally walk down the street and knock on my selectman's door or the budget committee member's door, or even here in New Hampshire with 400 odd
yeah,
reps.
it's dirty. Look at the supermarket.
Yeah, I could knock on their door and start screaming at them. You can't do that in most places, and that's one of the reasons why New Hampshire is such a special place. But it is incumbent upon us to keep them accountable.
You do that to your congressman, and the cop will take your stuff. I'm just tying this in from our last segment. I like to do that.
Well, you know something? I helped keep whichever tense.
Sentences,
My
words.
yeah, congressman accountable, and he lost his election
He did.
because he didn't keep his promise.
We did. We had a lot of help with that, keeping him accountable.
Yeah, well, in part we help to do that, and I think that's what people have to do. Because this is one of the things I was going to ask about Liberty Forum, so I'll slip it in now. We wanted to have a discussion forum, Granite Rock for limited government, and John Bush from the 10th Amendment Center about no government, and the pros and cons of that. And I'd be willing to live stream it, the whole bit, and room and a little table, and we'd be willing to do that, because I think that you need a limited government because of human nature, that if you don't have that, you will devolve into the rule of the strong man versus the rule of law.
Arguably, the government is the strong man.
It is, but
It is by our consent, and that's what comes back to the accountability you bring up. So
Possibly by our consent. I mean, this is something I was thinking about earlier in conjunction with whistleblowing, right? That everybody, you, everybody has seen a certain Western hundreds of times, right? There's a town, there's bad guys. You hire the hard-ass sheriff to come in and protect you from the bad guys, and he runs the bad guys off, and now his competition is gone, and he's worse than what you started with.
right.
You can make the argument that that's government. The cure is worse than the disease.
Well, it's funny that you put it that way, because we're sitting in the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers office suite. CNHT is well known not just for protecting taxpayers' rights, but also going out to root out malfeasance in our local towns. And then our local town sizes go anywhere from maybe 1,000 to 5,000 people here in New Hampshire. And there's a whole lot of the good old boys. You don't have to go out west for this. You can stay right here in New Hampshire and see the exact same thing.
Yep, we talked about police chiefs in the last segment. They like to create little fiefdoms,
And
just
so
like the
does
town sheriffs.
selectmen, town administrators, planning boards, you name it, there's going to be that popping up of that bad human nature, whatever. And CNHT is all about being the good sheriffs that doesn't move into town. They just stay the good sheriff, and then they help the local folks
They
do
work. They go, this is your town. You create a taxpayer group. We will help you create a taxpayer group. We will point you to people who know the law. We will help you interpret what your boards and committees are doing. And then you will go talk to them because you live there, we don't. And you will make arrangements with them and have a verbal form of intercourse, and you'll fight and you'll argue, and they'll probably try to blacklist you in some way, and all kinds of crazy things will happen. But that's what happens when you put a bunch of people in a group anywhere when you've got more than 3, usually. Sometimes you just need 2.
Sure.
And then people are going to disagree about stuff. You know?
But which isn't a problem until some of those people have the power to end the disagreement and just say, look, do it my way or you go to jail.
And you know what the biggest way to prevent that from? And I say it from personal experience. Because when I and my friend got on the budget committee in my town, they knew that we were, quote unquote, the right-wing extremists. We were the ones who wanted to cut the budgets because we saw it
Crazy
not
people
being
letting other
limited
people
government
keep their
anymore.
money. What's wrong with you?
I get tired of opening up the envelope for my real estate taxes and seeing a double-digit increase all the time. So somebody one day said, why don't you run for budget committee? After I asked a really small but turned out to be very important question that doomed the new police station they wanted to put in multi-million dollars. And all I had asked was, well, what is your percentage that you're using for the rise in the population that would give you the ability to say, I want this big of a police station over the next 20 years. And the police captain or chief just kind of acted like a corkscrew, like I had asked him the worst question. 30 seconds of silence.
You're not supposed to ask questions.
Well,
No question.
this is the biggest thing. Granite Rock has always said, bring a big, bad flashlight with you.
Yep.
And we used to get screamed at in the papers that we were the ones screaming and arguing everything else. So we started videoing the budget committee, then I started live streaming it. And this is well before live streaming was even popular. It was, even as a techie, it was real hard to get
And this is
to
standard.
do it.
This is standard activist geared out. Bring a camera.
Yep.
Well,
You bring
absolutely,
this
because
and
you
it shuts
shine
them down.
You shine the light on them. People will say that the camera is the new gun, really, right? If you can point and shoot and capture it in a way, you shine the light on what's going on, and that is something that's accountable, and that's why they hate it. I mean, I got arrested for filming police officers, you know. They don't like it.
Yeah, and they used to say, well, you'd edit it. You know, same thing that they throw with James O'Keefe of Project Veritas. Well, yeah, you can have hours of tedium and 30 seconds of really good, this shows the face of whatever they are. But you got to post that up and then post the whole thing. And
Right,
when we started doing that, then these people who were accusing us of malfeasance just because we were breaking up the good old boy network slunk away and they never showed up again.
Oh yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned James O'Keefe. He will also be coming to Liberty Forum.
Oh, cool!
He, of course, is a fantastic guerrilla activist, camera activist, journalist. He was the person who did the Acorn videos. Those went viral. He's written a book.
We're in his book.
Yes, and and I would love to see him move here. So I'm working my magic and my charm. I think we need more journalists. We need more people like you guys, and people who are willing to get the story, to do the filming, to shine the light, and to say, look, this is what's going on, so that people can actually make informed decisions. Technology is setting us free. I mean, these things weren't possible 20 years ago, and now they are. There's almost no cost to it, and Hillary Clinton said it best a couple of years ago, where she said, we have lost the information war. They have lost their propaganda machine. And that's why these ideas are spreading so fast. It's because of technology and because of the internet. And so, everyone should carry a video camera. Everyone should, have a podcast. People should be blogging, and we should spread these ideas far and wide.
I called it the new media militia at the beginning of the show, and that's really what it is.
I mean, we literally have a TV station on a laptop.
Right.
That's it.
And anybody can get to it from their smartphone or anywhere else they are, anywhere in the world right now. And if you're listening, thank you. And if you're watching, we appreciate it. Please donate. We do this for free, and stuff costs money. Anyway, but you're not required to do that.
I want to bring this up, though, because I wasn't here when Ian was in a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, that's right.
We also need people who are willing to stand up and go testify to the people who govern us to get those points across. And I said it out in the room, and I'll say it again. Your testimony in front of the House of Representatives was one of the most powerful pieces that I have ever read. Pithy, short, to the point, but brought in every single avenue of discussion that was absolutely needed by not going to the right, not going to the left, or freedom versus liberty, but going back down to our founding documents and say, this is what you should be about. You have ignored the boundaries. And if you're going to ignore our foundational law, why should we not be ignoring the law that you're setting for us? And I'll tell you, I read it because Susan Olson, another Grokster, brought it to our attention. We posted it. I did a couple of posts off of it. I got to go back and read it again. It was just so powerful. Where the heck did you get that from?
Well, I normally don't go out in public. I live out in the woods and don't see anybody.
I don't either, and I don't live in the woods.
And my friend JJ said, "Oh, you got to come to this hearing." I thought, well, okay, if I have to go, I might as well say something. So I just sat down and wrote that out. But it's obviously the culmination of a lot of thought and a lot of discussions with people like Carla and my wife, and just people who
Yay for
come over
wives.
to Bardo, right? I mean, and it's. I'm glad that you saw that one aspect of it. Is in some sense, I'm not on anybody's side except the side of let's, at least if we're going to play a game, not pretend we're playing a different game, right? And so, in that sense, I'm hoping to be able to appeal to anybody, Tea Parties, left, right, up, down, whoever. I think we're going to a break.
We are, and we're going to continue this discussion, and we want to talk about more about the guests who are coming. We'll get through all of that in our next segment with Carla Garrick and Ian Underwood. We'll be right back.
Can I just say something? You said something about the 10th Amendment Center and John Bush. Is he part of the 10th Amendment Center?
Yeah,
Because he's Texas. 10th Amendment Center's California. And
distributed.
Distributed, sure, but okay.
All over.
That's fine.
Yeah,
But he's not the guy that runs the 10th Amendment Center.
No, that's Michael Bolton.
Right.
Bolden.
Bolden.
Yes.
Okay, good.
And then we
I
had
was just-
Michael Mahari on last week, who's the communications director for the 10th Amendment Center.
Yeah, we had Michael Bolden on actually a couple of years ago at a big rally. I would say that we were probably the first people to do a live stream, and having somebody come in on Skype and doing that, it was wild.
He came to Liberty Forum, last year, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we, Mike Rogers, who isn't here today, is probably our contact from the GrokTALK to the 10th Amendment Center. He's been a big participant there. So we try. We're sort of the butterfly or the bumblebee that flies among all the flowers of the liberty and freedom area. And some, like a bumblebee, we sometimes crash into things too. But we'd like to have as many connections as we can because there's just so much going on.
It's great.
And you gotta know. I mean,
I used to think we had too many groups. There's not enough.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
More factions.
And as long as they're on our side.
That's the AIDS argument, right?
The one thing though that we're seeing now is we kind of dropped off a little bit, but at the beginning of the Tea Party, for the first time in decades, a lot of the liberty and freedom folks, the groups that used to fight each other, all came together and said, we got to put aside our differences and we're under attack. And that happened, and I'm seeing that starting to start up again. And I'll tell you something. The co-founder of Granite Rock with me said, in a while, these groups will have more power than what the GOP will. And I
think it's already there.
We're pretty close to there.
close.
Yeah, and with this week's event by the Republican state senators, they probably enhanced that.
Yeah.
So, I shake my head and go, you guys have gone beyond just self-destruction at this point. So so I think, like I said, all in, guys, come on in. Let's have fun. Come up to my town, please.
Here we go.
Help me.
GrokTV.